Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rock and Roll Brunch, a podcast, episode number 32. Today, we are talking about how musicians are back on the road and COVID is affecting them. Also, the newest one from the Wonder Years, The Hum Goes On Forever. All that, plus so much more, all in today's show. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Rock and Roll Brunch podcast, episode number 32. My name is Josh Marcanti. With me, as always, our two fabulous co-host boys, Mr. Dane Erbach and Mr. Chris Marcanti. Gentlemen, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Good
morning.
I'm good.
Dane, how's things going? How's Tricks?
Tricks be good. Sorry, I was unprepared. I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Tricks be good.
Tricks be good.
Tricks be
Tricks
good.
be good.
Tricks be good. Chris, how are you?
Look at that mug, though.
You know, anyone listening to the podcast is not going to be able to see the mug, guys.
Well, they should tune into the YouTube channel, youtube.com/rock and roll brunch podcast. Dane, what's with the mug? Explain the mug.
My birthday was like what, a week and a half ago? No,
yeah,
2 weeks ago today.
It's
happy
like
birthday on the show.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Thanks. And my wife, with help from my oldest, picked out this mug that looks like a Legend of Zelda cartridge for an NES. That it, and like the old
the gold.
NES ones were gold, yeah. So I have this shining gold cube mug.
I do love that it's a square.
Is the inside of it round or is it also cubed?
Okay, I can't.
Okay,
I don't want to spill my coffee.
The lip is so big.
Yeah, and it's also just a big mug.
It's
It's
unruly.
That's
a
more
weapon.
It's more like a tackle box than it is a coffee mug.
I mean, I feel like you could bring all your battle gear in this for some sort of
100%.
dungeon quest. So
yeah.
It's nice that they carved a circle in the top, and that way you could actually have coffee underneath the lid there.
Mm-hmm.
Should we make them put their lips on something square? No, make it circle.
No, we'll make.
What's cool about this though is like, while I'm stumbling down the stairs at 4:45 in the morning with my coffee, the square part of the top keeps less spilling than usual. So
I just love it's. Do you know how many ounces of coffee are in that coffee mug? It literally, it just looks like, because it's square and then a circle at the top.
It
like
makes it look like, those like gas station super mugs. Like you're like, that's huge, because
too much.
Truckers needed it to keep up.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
But I do like it.
It does. I'm glad. There's a Mario one too. But
I also wonder, like,
save it for next time.
Now that I'm seeing that gold plating on a mug, it makes me go like, Nintendo didn't spend a lot of money on those cool cartridges, those collector's edition cartridges. Like,
did you think
that's where you went? No, I thought you were going to say, like, what else should I be gold plating in my life?
That's true.
We should be gold. Maybe these microphones.
I can't advise that the gold plating is good for a mug, because it tastes a little like my fillings. Like their spider senses go crazy when
this mug tastes like my fillings.
Yeah, it is a little weird there. But it's not enough for me to stop drinking out of it. So
there you go.
Good. That's important.
Chris, how are you this morning? Your voice is extra deep.
It is. We had a show last night, and so Daddy is tired. Daddy's tired this morning. Okay,
Chris, you're not.
Let's leave him alone.
I hate to break it to you, buddy. You're not the daddy of this podcast. I hate to break it to you.
That's probably true, actually. First of all, I was the last dad on this podcast, but
that's number one.
Yeah,
number two, you're definitely not the dad.
Well, okay.
I as the host, I'm not the dad. I think it's just Dane for like wrangling us up.
No, Josh, I think you're the mommy.
I don't like the
and Chris, I think you're the bratty kid who always gets his way, always gets what he wants.
This one's going on the Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Josh, I think you're the mommy. Dane, what you been listening to lately? Anything good?
Yeah, I've been listening to. Well, first I should throw out there that Sam I Am has a new song.
I did hear that,
and it's very good. and it's on Pure Noise, which I think is really interesting because they're they're like a pop punky kind of easy core ish, or at least they've always been perceived that way.
Yep.
As a record label, so that's kind of a cool.
Yeah, they seem to
I don't
just
know.
collect legacy acts. Legacy being like older bands. They seem to just collect there. Less Than Jake has a record out on there.
Yeah. Do you remember
Lost Soul record label.
Do you remember like Rise Records had that phase too where they were just taking on all these older bands and stuff?
Yeah.
So oh, and there's my daughter.
Good
I've also
morning.
been listening to Rocky Votolato. Do you know? I don't know if I'm saying
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I've
That
never
new-
known how to say his name.
that new album of his is super good. So
Awesome.
And then the last new album I've been jamming a lot is not very new, but it's by this band called Shiner.
That sounds
And they're
familiar.
they're kind of an older band too.
Yeah.
But they're kind of like they have a newer album, even though they were kind of like a early 2000s I think early 2000s kind of heavier band. So a
Wait,
mix of like
Can you
go
talk
ahead.
about Rocky
Votolato?
Votolato a little bit more?
Yeah, he's a dude who who's like acousticy stuff I've dug in the past.
Right.
But it's not something that's like hit really hard. It's just sort of something good to put on. You know what I mean? So he released a new album on Spartan Records, which is a label I really enjoy and I follow pretty closely, and it's really good. It's there are songs that just sort of crept into my subconscious that would like cycle around my brain at night all night long. So that it's called Wild Roots. It's really good. There's definitely a top 10 song of the year on that album for me.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Oh, definitely.
And then I also should mention that I've been listening to the new Death Cab record and that I like it.
I wanted to add it and listen to it just to check it out, but I never got around to it.
Death Cab thing. Chris,
Yeah.
what you been listening to, buddy?
Old red face here. I haven't been listening to anything new, quite honestly. It's really
great. I've been listening to
that's fine. Josh, what have you been listening to?
Well, Dane, I wanted to point out I think I might have spoken a little bit about them that record Strategies. That's been it keeps coming back up for me.
It's a good one.
And then I accidentally stumbled into a Baroness / Killswitch Engage show in Minneapolis this week.
I saw some pictures of that.
Yep. So I've been listening to. I've been like I've always kind of kept Baroness as like a band that I've like should be listening to and kind of like, oh yeah. But then having seen them live, I'm like, oh wow, okay, I need to be listening to them a lot more. I think what's funny is they were like, it was almost like fish out of water for them, but for that show, but they were great, and so I'm listening to them a lot. And
I have been listening to Killswitch since that. Josh, it's like 11 o'clock at night, and Josh is sending me like, "I will bid farewell," and I'm like watching it. I'm laying in bed, just have a seizure of a light show. I'm like, I should be listening to more metal. And for the record, that the Killswitch record that came out in 2019, that's with the old lead singer that came back.
Yeah,
boy, it is fucking.
I told you,
brutal. Oh my god!
I literally take Chris's like, I can't believe you're at a Killswitch show right now because I haven't seen Killswitch Engage in 15 years or something. And I literally texted Chris that text. I was like, they are brutal. I mean, it was like almost it was just a packaged seizure. It was like, ah.
You did forget to mention that you also saw Lamb of God.
No, I left. I just left. I didn't see Lamb of God. I was like, nah, I'm good.
That's an interesting bill.
It was interesting.
It's like Killswitch Engage is definitely a metal band that for some reason has always been lumped into punk circles, at least in my head.
Right.
Baroness is like a metal band that has kind of goes back to metal-y roots and kind of sledges them up and puts them
very sludgy.
Yeah, and then I don't know. Lamb of God just sort of feels like as metal, like any metalhead you knew in high school was wearing
Right.
a Lamb of God shirt.
Right.
You know,
And then like being in that crowd and seeing the kind of people who were wearing Lamb of God shirts, I was like, this is why I'm not
like,
going to go
oh,
watch them.
you've got dreadlocks, white
Yeah.
guy.
So I was just about to say, super long, stringy hair,
I mean,
while like has a black lip piercing and is outside smoking.
like just big jeans.
Yeah,
big jeans, just
and
big
you're
jeans.
hold on a second, and then you walk up to him and you go like, "Hi, I have an HP Envy 7200. Like, do you know if you have ink for that or
They're like, yeah, come with me.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Is this a Office Depot joke or
it's layered? They're all working at Office Depot.
Listen, we walked past Office Depot yesterday because there's a Dollar Tree. I know this is like Crystal Lake
I'm so
fans
excited.
only here, guys.
Crystal Lake fans only.
And I walked past with my 3 kids, and I'm like, I'm pretty like. Didn't
Chris
Emily
used to
work
steal
there?
stuff from here.
Didn't Emily used to work there though with you?
No, her and I worked at Office Max.
Well, I know, but before it was Office
It's
Depot, it was Office.
It's the
same place,
Is it?
right?
Are they?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the same business. I think it's weird that they call it this different things. But anyway, I was telling my kids, I'm like, Mama used to work here. All I could think of was that you used to work here.
Yeah.
Mama and Uncle Chris used to hanky panky in the back.
So did Amanda used to work there too.
No way, really?
Yeah, I got the job there. You made it look like part of your plating fell off.
in his mouth.
It slipped in my hand and spilled. Wait,
goddamn fillings.
This is the worst and longest opening to a podcast ever. Did you like work there just to be around Amanda? Was that
no.
like one of you?
No.
Okay.
It was to be around Emily.
It was to be around Emily. Yeah. Although she would be there for 8 hours and no one would know. I distinctly remember that.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I think back on that and I'm like, Emily working retail at that point? I'm like,
yeah.
It was just like she'd be there for 8 hours facing pens. Like,
welcome to Office Max.
Yeah, I imagine that.
Yeah. That's how you face pens, though.
I think so too. Yeah. Is Emily here? I'm here. All right. Let us jump into the meat of the show.
Of jumping into meat, don't
right into the meat. This one brought to us by the good folks over at NPR. Musicians are back on the road, but every day is a gamble. As a show, I think it's been a little bit since we've we always kind of like talk about COVID in the background, but it's been a minute since we've actually talking. Have a good one about COVID as it relates to specifically touring musicians. So that's what this one was all about. You got to read this one. It's kind of summarizes basically COVID and how so much can go into touring for musicians, and yet right at the finish line someone can pop COVID and people lose all sorts of money. What's really interesting is I thought probably the most interesting part of this article was how so much of touring life is reliant on the musicians themselves. It's on their shoulders. It's on their backs. They are the ones who are responsible for the level of precaution. They foot the bill when somebody catches it in their crew. My question to you guys, they in this article they kind of talked about COVID as in like something that we're weathering. COVID's not going away anytime soon. It's going to be the new normal. It's something we're going to deal with every year forever, much like the flu and the common cold
until the next one shows up.
Yeah. Since it's not going away, is this the new normal for touring life where musicians have to deal with all these complications and have to take on these additional debts and these additional worries and frankly tour less? Is this something that we're going to be seeing going forward? Dane, what you look like you got an answer for that question.
Sure.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, I can't help but think that most musicians know that touring is a risk. I mean, and they've always perceived touring as a risk. Even when like I don't know if you guys ever had touring aspirations in any of the bands you were in.
Yeah.
Or I know that I don't know if we really ever talked about touring with the American Autumn or anything like that.
Yeah.
We got really close to hopping on a tour when we were like in like college,
Yeah.
with one of my bands. And I mean, I don't know, things fell apart pretty quickly, just
Thank
because
God.
one person was like, "Hey, I got to work on Monday. We can't be on tour on, like we're kicking off the tour on Sunday." Well, like, so there's like always been risks to touring.
Chris, are
It's
you
kind of,
falling asleep right now?
yeah.
No.
You and everyone else in this listening to the podcast
Uh,
every time I talk.
No.
But for real, I do think that like, what if this is really that new? You know,
right.
COVID adds another variable, but like a, a van breaking down is just as reasonable of a
Yeah.
risk. Maybe more of a risk. I don't know, um, because the one, I mean, if it's not the van, or if it's not like influenza, or if it's not like laryngitis or like strep throat or some other illness,
Yeah.
I mean, it's somebody stealing all the money from the merch counter, or
Right.
And there.
a bar that double booked the venue that night, or
Been
it's
there.
Been
not
there?
having a place. Yeah, like there's I don't know, like COVID's
What?
just one other thing. And that's what I couldn't help but think about when I was reading this article, is like COVID's complicating something that's already complicated, which is bad. But when you've got so many other risks kind of involved, it doesn't feel like COVID's any riskier, other than you could get sick, and possibly spread a deadly virus, that I think, the past year hasn't been as deadly. And that,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound like Joe Rogan and start spreading myths
Whoa,
about
whoa,
COVID
flagged,
here.
Calling it
flagged,
out.
flagged,
Calling it
flagged.
out.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. But you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that COVID is still a deadly virus
Sure.
that's making its way around the world, and that, if you're looking at statistics, it's not putting people in hospitals as often, and it's
Right.
not killing as many people, but it doesn't reduce that risk. So I think more than anything, the new normal is going to have to be fans, like being ready to like have to, get ticket
Cancel
refunds.
or yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
What I
the
did
whole
what I did
legs will, yeah.
find
Sorry, go on.
interesting in that article is the idea that like the cost of mitigating COVID spread at your
Mhm.
show is absorbed by the band, which I thought was super, super interesting. Because like I'd also wonder if like, and I know bands will likely have to purchase insurance policies and things, especially if you're doing like a big venue, right, where you might hire extra staff to deal with COVID, and that's kind of what they were pointing to. But like, if it that begs the question of like someone gets sick and someone dies from COVID, are like people holding the band liable? And if they were, that makes sense to me that the band would foot the bill to like do pre-screenings at the door.
Right.
But like that caught my eye in this article
Well,
of the idea that like the bands were just absorbing the cost of this
that was
COVID
my
surcharge.
biggest thing too. Yeah. And that the pull quote that I grabbed from the article is it says, so what happens when shows are canceled due to COVID? If they aren't able to reschedule lost dates, artists are obligated to refund tickets and, if applicable, give venues back their deposits. Musicians who travel with a crew typically have agreements on how to compensate them in the event of cancellations. Those vary, but typical one might require paying half of their wages, despite them not actually playing the show. Travel might need to be rebooked, which they might not get reimbursed, and quarantine hotels secured. Any money already spent on promotion is likely non-refundable. Additionally, if a show doesn't happen, a booking agent doesn't collect their commission after putting in as much as 3 years of work to make a concert happen. It's just so much lost for like someone at the last second to go like, I partied last night and I have COVID today. Like specifically the artist referenced in the article was saying how like they were traveling in Europe and managed to avoid it for a while, but then all of a sudden, the band is footing the bill. Chris, should the government be responsible for offering any assistance to these to any band or an artist for that matter in general, for kind of keeping the whole economy, they're like the article said, they're the engine of the economy, not not the normal economy, the entertainment economy. Should the government have any step in to help off when stuff like that happens?
Yeah, obviously, I think yeah, that's a very good catch-22, because of course the like musical arena we come from of punk rock would be like, fuck the government or whatever, but they're also like, hey, if you wouldn't mind, those stimulus checks have been great.
Those couple of those stimmies,
the stimmy money. I think it's part of what makes part of what makes a good society is the government's ability to invest in the arts and in culture, and but whether that's painters and writers and musicians or whatever, but
right.
It's part of what makes a good society, but musicians and venues and things like that have to be a bottom of the spreadsheet line item that says that we don't have money to like give over to musicians and stuff. I know there was some act or whatever that was allowing venues to withdraw money, the Stages Act or whatever.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, pushed by Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, that helped venues and maybe musicians or acts or something like that. But I do think it's like, my personal opinion is that part of the government's job is to keep its society healthy and support.
Well, so yeah, I mean,
endeavors.
even to that point where, it was the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant, which all venues could apply for emergency assistance. Now, that assists venues, which, I guess if we're assisting other businesses that got money, that lines up. But I'm specifically referring to artists themselves. It's a lot to shoulder, or are they just like the article said, like, hey, you're taking the risk, accept it.
It is ironic. Like, there's of the whole point that everybody wouldn't be in the same room if it wasn't for this musician. So maybe they should bear the responsibility of ensuring
there's no venue without any musicians. So
fair enough, but somebody, but I think that, I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah, Dane, what do you think?
Well, the only thing I'm thinking of right now is like how other countries do a really good job at supporting artists, like and give out grants and shit. Like Canada's got a great organization for that, and different European countries or maybe the European Union or something gives out like grants to artists. And here in the United States, we only do that if like you've already proven yourself to be a successful artist, and like those MacArthur Genius grants and stuff. To me it seems sort of like maybe if the United States supported the arts a little bit more intentionally, like this would have been a no-brainer already at this point, like emergency funding because I mean, like, I think it was pretty obvious, at least to us, because we pay attention to the arts. Like when COVID hit,
we pay attention to the arts.
I mean, we do though, like, because we did a whole episode on how COVID was impacting artists. You know what I mean? Like, we know that. So, like, I'm sure the government probably knew that too, and they're like, "Yeah, but we're dealing with this, this whole
the rest
pandemic
of the
thing over here, like, and the economy, right?"
And,
so,
and I
anyway,
think, I think most of this conversation, like even to what you just said there, Dane, like applies to larger musicians. This has nothing to do with like the guys who hit the road and they're playing for 100 people. Like, so they're shouldering all this responsibility, all this risk, um making $0 in the best of scenarios, and then COVID hits, and now they're paying to play. So that was kind of my walk away. Like, I don't know if the government should be assisting artists, but it seems like I said, on the one hand, it's like, hey, you're taking all the risk. This is part of the deal. But it also made me go like, okay, if the government doesn't step in, and venues are taking a piece, and promoters are taking a risk piece, like the future of again focusing on middling acts or small acts, like, why would they ever hit the road? How could they ever hit the road?
Well,
Doesn't it already seem like smaller bands are already reluctant to hit the road? Like,
Yeah.
it seems like there's no one in that lowest tier of bands or far fewer bands that are that lowest tier that are really touring. But anyway,
yeah,
sorry,
they're
go on.
trying. I was gonna say, imagine a scenario where there's like two more COVIDs, right? Where like maybe it's not as bad, but like another one comes in a few years that like shuts the country down again, and we were all in our homes for like a full year, just locked away.
Yeah.
Like that just continues to chip away at people's sense of wanting to like go to shows, and bands' sense of wanting to carry the brunt of those costs and things like that. Like, you just imagine that these disasters of keep bands from like wanting to try anymore. And
That's what I'm saying. Like the barrier to entry has now but it's not going away. It's not gonna. And to your point, Chris, like, the COVID-22 is around the corner. COVID-23 is coming. BA variant, blah 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 blah, is coming.
yeah, you know how there are very weird people in the world that don't
Go off.
Don't listen to music.
Yeah.
Have you ever run into these people that are like, I just don't really listen to music? You're like, oh, okay. And how many goddamn bodies do you have buried?
All right,
Like,
psycho.
it's like,
Jeffrey
listen to music.
fucking Dahmer.
I wonder if it gets to the point where like people are like, we feel like shows are super important. Like, Josh, you sending me videos of Killswitch Engage, I was like, I would love to be seeing Killswitch Engage. But I wonder if like there continues to be a growing group of people that are like, I don't know, I just don't really get live music.
I don't get it.
I don't really get. I like streaming music. I like listening to whatever.
So,
but
again, like, this goes to the comment I said a second ago. Don't you feel like we're already halfway there anyway without a pandemic?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
people are already kind of like, oh, I don't mind watching this, just live streaming this Shakira concert on ABC primetime. You know what I mean? It's like, or Good Morning America's like summer concert series. Like, that's
Sure.
good, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, and like, how do you explain to someone who's never seen a live performance of anything or of any musician, like,
you
how
can't.
important that is, right?
You can't. You have to tell them to go. But
if COVID,
there's a chance. Yeah,
if COVID stops more of those from happening, or prevents more artists from wanting to take the risks and absorb, like, have to absorb all of the consequences of it, like, I feel like the music industry is just gonna. I mean, I guess maybe we shouldn't think of it more as a music industry thing. Maybe we should think of it as just as a music problem, right? Because the industry might be able to, like, venues and promoters and stuff, they still might be taking enough of their cut to keep afloat. The musicians might just be like, "Meh, I don't think I can do it."
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's my point. Yeah. But that's the Great Depression economics 101, which is that if there's no supply, there will be no demand. If there's no demand, there will be no supply. And then what? I
we're
don't.
stuck with Twitch streams for the rest of our existence.
And
like,
that company's
Twitch streams.
doing a lot to help bands, as we've discovered. Yeah,
it is. That.
It is super interesting that like the crux of it is COVID. I feel like I've seen less cancellations, but
yeah,
I saw more of them than I was thinking. Even early, like the summer, I saw a lot like bands that were like, I think they're staying off the road for shorter periods of time. For like they get COVID, they're only off
like
for
a couple nights or something.
a couple nights, and then
Yeah.
they get maybe even thrice this summer. I feel like they fell off a tour for a couple days.
I think Bad Religion did,
Yeah.
and I think Hot Water Music might have too. Like
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it is interesting how it's still like kind of deeply impacted, but yeah, and then they, the bands absorb the cost of it.
Yeah. I mean, and then maybe inversely, like, we're screaming the sky is falling, and it's like it's just another, it was funny because like we went to the pediatrician the other day, and the pediatrician's like,
Sounds like a joke.
no, she's like, is the school even asking for testing anymore? And they're like, no, they're not. And they're like, do they care? Do they want you? And I'm like, no, they're not. Nobody cares. So I wonder if like we're screaming like the sky is falling, but in reality, it's just like, hey, you got the flu, you got COVID, you got the house flooded. It's just another thing that can
That's
cancel
actually
a show.
You say house flooding, and that makes me feel like it's not going to be the last COVID. So like you're really just asking into the future of like what then? But then right now there are shows that we have to take out insurance policies for us. Like we're nobodies, and we have to go. They're like, yeah, we're more with the certificate of insurance, and you're like, oh, okay, a cost of whatever. But if insurance policies will start to supplement these things, where like venues will take out COVID policies, or bands, tours, whoever, will take out COVID policy. Or maybe it already exists. I don't know.
I think, just to go back to the article maybe one more time.
No.
I think one of the big points of the article
Okay.
is that maybe we are being a little, how much are we being overly cautious about COVID, and how much are we being just straight realistic? But at the end of the day, the artist is, like there's that one thing about how they're staying away from merch tables to just sort of like control how much contact
that was
they have with
that
their
was
own
thank you.
fans. You know what I mean? And these are like little things, but the artists are the ones wearing 2 masks everywhere they go, and limiting their exposure to other people. And limiting their contact with the other bands, and even being in other rooms with people. And at the end of the day, like they might take it more seriously than the rest of the world is. Handing out masks at their shows, even if no one wears them, just because like they know they, like everyone else, can selfishly enjoy the music,
but like they have another date to get to.
Like this might be those masks, which cost a box of masks might have cost them $20, but that's their insurance policy for the night.
Sure.
And that's literally all they can control is attempt to hand out masks, because they need to go. They've got 2 more weeks on tour.
Yeah. The other point. This I'm so glad you brought it back to this. Because that was one of my big takeaways was, it says musicians who close off backstage areas and stay away from merch tables miss out on potential networking and connections that could lead to future work. That is the underrated thing, because so much of being a musician has little to do with what music you play, and it's more, the connections that you make. And if you're voluntarily abstaining from meeting people for fear of making it to the next show, which it is what it is, you're definitely missing out on like the people you could have met with, even the other buddy bands or whatever. So all right, well, I don't think we answered that question. I'm just gonna have to.
We did
we solved the world's problems?
Yeah, we solved music's problem.
Hell yeah, dude.
Let the government give them money.
Yes, did it.
Get that stimmy.
Well, let's go ahead, jump onto the review portion of the show. Today we're going over the newest one from the Wonder Years. The title "Hum Goes On." The hum goes on forever, or hum goes on forever. The hum. Confidently, the hum goes on forever. Daddy Joshy's gonna decide who gets to go.
You go first.
I think I went first last time, actually.
Is that true?
Yeah. I think I'm most, because I feel like I know what's gonna happen with Chris. I already know what's gonna happen here.
Then you should.
So it needs to be a sandwich. You need
to start with Chris, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go with Chris first. And Chris, The hum goes on forever.
By the Wonder Years.
By
We
the
saw
Wonder
the Wonder
Years.
Years at Riot Fest, and they remind us that they're a good live band. And then this record reminds us that they're just not what I feel like I used to really enjoy about the Wonder Years. I've sat out the past couple of Wonder Years records.
I did the wrong order. Go ahead. Yeah.
I sat out the past couple of Wonder Years records. There's always one song or two songs that sound like older Wonder Years songs. Then I'm like, oh, okay. But they're the same, like, vocal breakdown. They're the same, like they're you know, I just feel like their songwriting is very stagnant. The only thing that's changed is the thing that I like less about them, which is the lead singer's voice. He like did the Aaron West thing and started getting really like whiny, and I don't know. I'm not getting along with the melodies. I'm not getting along with the lyrics, and so I'm losing more and more touch with the Wonder Years. This, they have two big songs off this record, the Wyatt song and then Low Tide. And Wyatt's song is a song that's clearly about his son named Wyatt. And but I just don't, he's like, I've never felt so low. I've never felt so scared. And I haven't been a parent for very long, but I don't think I've ever felt low about my kid. I felt scared, like, yeah, I wasn't going to do a good job, but I didn't quite understand the song. I was like, oh, all right, it seems like you're trying to be the thing they are, which is like the sad boys, and they're like bringing all of this in. The other thing I'll say is Low Tide's a good song, but it's again like the last lyric in that song is like, I ruin everything. And you're like, homeboy, you're 30 something years old with a kid. Like, you don't ruin everything. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of eye rolling. Yeah.
Yeah. And then seeing them live on top of it is just like their speeches in between songs where they're like, if you just feel like today's your day, and you're like, okay, got it. Thanks, man. Like, I don't want to discourage people from getting something from that, but it's just less and less for me. And then the last thing I'll say is like the Wyatt song, Mark Hoppus has credits on that song. And you're like,
oh, he does?
Yeah. And you're like, all right, you're out getting some help on writing. And then I'm not relating to the music, and like you could literally put Low Tide and Wyatt song, the choruses are like swappable. You could literally just like the rhythm of the guitar, and I don't know. So overall, there's a couple of like hooky songs on here, but I feel like I'm just getting further and further from the Greatest Generation or Suburbia, and obviously their first record, The Upsides, but like those were 3 back-to-back bangers, and then they have since gone like a little more moody in their music, and I'm just not it's just not for me. Just not
wow
for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Not what I was expecting.
Dane, who do you line up with, me or Josh?
You don't know me.
I think Josh, you need to go next.
Ooh.
All right. Yeah. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I agree with what you just said. Live, phenomenal. Mostly that their energy is just unmatched. Not unmatched, but their energy is fantastic. I agree that it was also whiny live. Where I was like, come on, guys. Come on.
You're in your 30s.
Like, I'm not in a international touring act, but I definitely have a strong concept of move it along, keep it going.
Yeah.
It's hot. People they're just standing here. Where I was like, come on, please. I definitely agree that there was some sameness going on, where I'm like, I think I always think about like people who are not so dialed in, and if someone who doesn't even listen to this genre of music would go like, these are all the same song. I hear some of that. I do hear some of that argument. I will say that for me, this is their best record since Greatest Generation. I've dipped out for the past few because they weren't doing it for me. And what makes this different from that? You know, and frankly, it's maybe the fact that I have dipped out for so long that I was like ready to hear more. Certainly a possibility. I just think so positives. Lyrically, what's interesting is I listened to this record while reading the lyrics, because like I understood that. To me, I'm like, okay, let's pretend he's not just complaining. What are we talking about here?
That's very nice of you.
I know. And I was right for doing so. I think when you mentioned the word low, the motif of like tides coming in and out, and low tides and high tides.
The song's called Low Tide.
No, I understand, but it's throughout the record.
Yeah.
There's a lot of continuity through the record.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of motifs.
Keep saying motif.
Like gray. Like he talks about gray in a lot of different songs. So I don't think the word low means like necessarily like him feeling depressed. I think it more means like, boy, here's lyric interpretation 101. It more means like how he's like feeling in his life, and like high tides
he's
and low
feeling
tides.
low. Yeah.
No, like how he's doing more than like how he's feeling. But some
in
of that
in a song you've dedicated to your son, it's a weird place to stick it.
But it's okay to go like, sometimes you feel like you're failing as a father. Like what like sometimes I shake the fuck out of my children.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's not what the report says.
That's not what I told the police.
I'm cringing over here.
Uh,
Keep going, guys.
I'm kidding. Keep it rolling, guys. But no, songs about being a dad, old friends. Some of that I definitely hear, but some of the ones where he's just like, we're still like talking about like being whiny. I'm like, okay. I think positives, another, like, there's 3 guitar players in this band. Now, is that too much? Maybe, but sonically it lends to some like really interesting parts, some like,
for sure,
like stuff that like I was thinking like I couldn't play this on guitar because it's not that the parts are too complicated, but that if I was just sitting here playing guitar to like goof around with it, it wouldn't sound like the record. And I'm like, I think that's a good thing. Is that too many guitar players? Maybe, but I did think that guitar wise it was really interesting.
They write great music. Like,
yeah, the music itself is really great
when they're not trying to write like their pocket of the same song music, like da 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 da, like whatever that is. They write great music. They really do.
Yeah, and like writing great music, and finding some things for me to dive into lyrically, and identifying with some things and finding the hooks, so like that. There's enough there for me to really like this record, and find it the most enjoyable that I've had experience that I've had since seeing them. And then there were some, like we saw them play Paris of Nowhere live, and having seen that live, definitely like he was talking, I forget which song but he was talking about how like Riot Fest was one of his favorite shows because he could see the carousel through the trees, and then that kind of made its way into the record as well. And I was like, it helped me
pull you in.
buy in for sure. So really liked it. Dane,
What'd you think? Honestly, I thought I was going to be the negative review of this one, so I'm kind of that's why I was like, you guys go first. But
Rug
maybe
pull.
on the middle, but maybe on the middle ground, because there's a lot that I liked about this record. And there are a few things that I found annoying. But the things there, so one of the things that I liked is that there was some classic Wonder Years stuff that is the stuff that hit me, right?
Yeah.
And Chris, you were saying that. And and then there were some slower songs, and it's been driving me nuts for a week. Like there are some slower songs that are just sort of spacey, big chords, slow drum beats, kind of reverby vocals.
Yeah.
And they remind me of another band, and I can't figure it out. So in a weird way, like I like those slower songs because they're expanding what I know to be the Wonder Years sound, and they remind me of something else that's not pop punk that I like, that doesn't need to be saved, right? So the pop punk songs though are my favorite ones. And their Low Tide really hit me. I just think I'm cutting off my hair, or I'm growing out my hair. Sorry, I keep getting the lyrics wrong.
Who gives a shit? Yeah.
And also because I don't have hair and I can't relate to it.
Also, that's the exact
way.
Sorry, that's the exact opposite of the lyrics.
Anyway, I'm
It's
growing
me,
out
it's
my
me.
hair. I'm growing out my hair is such a catchy thing to yell.
Yeah.
Like in a mosh pit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And adding the swear in there, like the apathy and all that stuff. It's just a good anthemic song.
That's
And
my favorite song on the record for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, my favorite song is Lost It in the Lights, which is another faster, like pop punkier song. But I really love the lyrics of What If the Magic's Gone. I guess I should be glad that I was still in the fight, or I really like the lyrics about, like, I wrote a song about how I was drinking kerosene when I was 17 to light a fire in my gut, and I'll be coughing up those embers for decades. Like, that's just the thing that I've got. Like, I'm writing this thing that I did when I was 17. And like there's a self-awareness of it. Now maybe I'm misinterpreting the lyrics.
No, that's exactly it.
There's a self-awareness of this
song.
That's
exactly what it is.
Did you watch that video?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, it's it's right on the money.
Yeah, but I love that. Here's, for the first time that I know, an aging pop punk kid who like wrote some great music when they were teenagers, got scooped up by the scene and like lifted up, right? Looking back 20 years later and being like, yeah, maybe I don't got it anymore. What if I don't got it anymore? And maybe I should just be happy for what I've done. And to me, this feels like if this were the last song they ever wrote, what a fucking awesome last song to land on.
Go on.
I know that that's, obviously not it. Anyway, I connected with that one. And the problem that I have with the rest of this record is I didn't connect with a lot of it. You know what I mean? And The Greatest Generation is the last one I really connected with. When I heard it, I was like, man, like there were stories in the songs that just, they weren't my stories, but for some reason I felt like they could have been. And that's what I've always found powerful about the Wonder Years. I will say one more thing that I don't really like. And as a creative writing teacher and as a person who teaches things like imagery, I feel like every one of these songs has like, is just set up on a bed of unnecessary details, which are making them feel like they're supposed to be poetic. Like, I was with this guy in this place smoking these kinds of cigarettes, watching this kind of baseball game, and hearing these people saying this thing, and I'm like, but it's so specific that, I mean, I think it's supposed to be evocative. I think it's supposed to like be like put me there.
Yeah.
But I'm not there, man.
Interesting.
Instead, I'm thinking like, I don't really care where you are at the moment you're writing this song. I mean, I think a lot of times I've enjoyed music that's like that.
Yeah.
But every single album feels that way. So Wyatt's song, for example.
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
About like, I'm driving you home, listening to God Only Knows, and or I'm crawling on your bedroom floor or something and listening to I don't know if
I pulled a piece of glass out of the garden so you won't cut your foot.
Right.
I was like,
and when you learn to run, but you learn to say moon, so we waved from your room, and I'm like,
yeah, some of that
so
for sure.
specific.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I know that this one again is supposed to be a dad kind of kid thing, right? So in that way, there are probably some feelings that I'm feeling that are relatable, but the specific details of the lyrics in every song, man, Doors I Painted Shut is a really nice song, right? And I love that it links back to the last song, right? I love that the opening and the ending kind of sync together. But like I Don't Want to Die, at least not without you, anthemic, chorusy kind of thing. Alone here in the August heat in the shadows of the afternoon. I'm like, where are we? Wait, hold on. And there's a draft coming from underneath a door I swore I painted shut. And I'm like, wait, are they in a burning building right now? Like, where are we? But you know what I mean? Like there's like this metaphoric detail and symbolic detail mixed in with like these like super specific I'm in the moment details, and I can't get it's too much detail. You know what I mean? Like give me something I can relate to instead of something that is so specific that it feels like I'm in a Chuck Palahniuk book or something.
This is an interesting because I would wager to guess that whatever, I can't remember his name. Not Aaron West. That's this other band. Anyway, whatever the lead singer's name is that like he would Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
He would consider
Soupy
Campbell. I think he would consider himself like poetic and like a writer first or something, and then to get somebody that is a writer to be like, hey man, and then teaches writing. Just a little, you did a little too much. Like it sounds like a red mark on a paper that you sent back to a kid.
I hope it doesn't come off like shitty, but like I'm kind of clicking through more of the lyrics now. The oldest daughter's the third song. You drift in with the wind and use a library computer to check in. Like what? I mean,
where are we?
I know where we are. We're at the library, but the next line is you can't sleep at the table, ma'am. You're scaring the kids. And now I'm a specific character in a story who is for some reason having I'm a homeless person at the library, maybe I'm not sure, but because of that level of specificity, which is great in storytelling, I lose my connection to the song a little bit
because you're not passed out of the library.
I'm sure I'm not, but I want.
Is there a certain level of that that's like you find acceptable? Where or is it like the mixing of the two, or is it are there instances in this record, without giving you the next 15 minutes, are there there instances in this record where you're like, oh, I like how this was this storytelling tool is applied here. It works here. It doesn't work here.
I don't know if there's man, if this were another record, I might be saying that this is great. Like this is what makes it a great record. For some reason, it's just too much on this one. There are some songs that I like it. I think I like Lost in the Lights because it's that what if the magic's gone question is broad enough that any of us could be asking that question about any of us. And so because it's able to dip in and out of the scene, so to speak, I feel like that could be my song too, but some of the other songs I don't feel like, even his song about his kid, like I feel like that can't be my song. In the same way, Chris, I think, Chris, you were talking about how that just didn't feel like you could relate to it as a parent. And I think that's part of it. We don't need to relate to his kid's song. Like
that's not the point of it.
It's not. But plus,
I add glass to our garden. I don't want her to grow up and not be, resilient.
What are you doing?
There's a whole metaphor there too. There's a whole metaphor. Too much detail, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Chris.
Yeah.
In the pantheon of Wonder Year records, I'm
gonna start
not for the year. Yeah.
I'm gonna start. Unfortunately, there's just too many good records, but I have a feeling I'll start doing what I do with Frank Turner, which is just like listen to very specific songs. The hook in Low Tide is good enough for me to go like, oh, I want to listen to that song.
Yeah.
So if anything makes its way through, it's like same thing with maybe Sister Cities or
Closer to Heaven.
Yeah, like I can't think of the song off of there, but like those songs where you're like, oh, I want to listen to that song. But the other thing I meant to say before was that I think the song is mixed and engineered closer to the Greatest Generation stuff, and that is probably why it'll end up coming. Those songs will come back more often because it has that like that sort of polish on it, where the the past few records were a little bit mixed a little bit differently. So to answer your question, I'll pick out some songs from here and keep listening to those.
What about for the year?
I don't know. I mean, there's been so many good records that have come out this year.
So much.
So I mean, yeah, like I said, it'll be a song or two that makes it into the future, but outside of that,
yeah. For me, I think I'll think back on this record very positively. I think, like you said, there's definitely some songs that I'm gonna go back to. I think, in terms of like kind of growing up with these guys and experiencing the same things that they experienced and that they're writing about, and then also maturing musically and enjoying their evolution from more of a pop punk band into like whatever this is. I don't know what you'd even label it. I think I'm going to look back on it very favorably. I think I'll listen to the record more front to back while also experiencing a lot of the same critiques that Dane talked about. Because Dane, to your point, that's kind of what I don't like about the Hold Steady, by the way, is like it's like,
that's what I don't like about the Hold Steady.
What are we like? It's June and we're like, what? But then I think I have the ability to yeah, you fuck off.
I'm gonna defend myself and derail this entire podcast.
but I think there's enough there for me to like, even just like I mentioned the guitars, to like continue to listen to that. I feel like musically I haven't even digested what's going on enough. And there's gonna be like, there's that like one part in one of the songs, I forget which even song it was, but it was like maybe the bridge was like boom, boom. But and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So I'm gonna look back at this one. It's gonna probably rank up there for me for the year. Dane, what about you?
I enjoyed this record. It is the kind of record you put in your classroom when kids are writing stuff and they're digging it and I'm digging it, and I will probably be listening to it more.
Nice.
I honestly just don't know that it's a favorite. It's probably not in the top 10, but it's one that I've come to know and like a lot, so I might come back around to it eventually.
Cool. Nice. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, boys. How, Dane, is your daughter awake?
Not yet, but I mean, it could be any moment.
Knock on wood.
Her hoo-hoo lamp is going to turn green in like 3 minutes.
All right. Well, let's get you out of here in time for her hoo-hoo lamp.
It's an owl, guys.
No, I get it.
It's an owl.
Don't be weird.
Of course, that's fine. That's all. That's what a hoot is, or a who.
Yeah.
Dane, where can people find what you're up to on the internet?
Jetsam-flotsam.bandcamp.com.
Thanks. Anything you want to?
Nothing yet, but we've been having some good conversations with some new bands, so it's been cool.
It's been weeks of that.
Yeah, it's been kind of slow at the end of the summer here. So
you've been posting some really good videos lately.
Bands are starting to play more. Yeah,
it's been really good. I've been enjoying that.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you? Where can people find what you're up to?
The Throwback Chicago Deep Camp.
Chicago.
Yeah. Josh, what about you, pal?
It's all right here.
Is it?
You can keep it right here. Rock and Roll Brunch. You can find us everywhere on the internet, minus Twitter because I don't do that, and minus TikTok because I don't do that, and we don't have a website because I don't do that. But we do have a podcast. You can find us on all.
Really invested in.
Look, I can't do all these things.
I gotta do all these things now.
Come on.
We do have a LinkedIn though, so
we do have a link. We're on MySpace and
obviously.
And Truth Social. You can find us at Rock and Roll Brunch everywhere. YouTube. Shoot us an email at rockandrollbrunch@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about this new Wonder Years record. I'm genuinely interested. So with that said, for me, for Christopher, for Dane. Dane isn't short for anything, is it?
Daniel.
For Daniel. Check, please.